Well, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I do apologize for being just a couple minutes late. As you know, Mondays are my busiest days of the week because we have our supporter calls on at 7 p.m. on Mondays, which means I'm running around all day. I also have a meeting with Joshua. Lots of stuff going on, and my audio is not working exactly how it should be, which I'm trying to fix at the moment, and I think I may have just fixed it, which is excellent. Oh my gosh, only 6 minutes late for Libertarian Standard Time today. And that is actually apt because we will be continuing to talk about libertarian drama and nonsense today because I do actually have a very important update, a couple important updates that in the continuing ongoing saga of the Mises Caucus purge in New Hampshire. And if you missed the Mises Caucus purge, I did a whole stream about it yesterday. I have some clips that are waiting to go up on the channel to give you, like, excuse me, a too long didn't read version of it. But I'll give you the quick overview of it. Here's what happened. Last week, the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus purged every single person in New Hampshire out of the Mises Caucus. Because they were pissed off that the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Twitter account was tweeting things that they didn't like. And so they decided to take it out on every single person in the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire, even though many people in New Hampshire still wanted to work with the Mises Caucus. They insulted me directly. They contacted my mother to smear me. You really can't make this stuff up. After 2 years of supporting the Mises Caucus unwaveringly, I had my mother contacted with a goddamn smear campaign. So, I have been covering the ongoing nonsense and insanity that's been going on in New Hampshire, and we had a couple more updates last night, and I do want to make sure people are up to speed with those. But that is not where we are starting off today. That is going to be the wrap up for today. We are going to be starting off today with Jazz Jennings. Jazz Jennings, for those of you who don't know, is basically was the first high profile trans kid. Jazz Jennings started transitioning at like 2 years old when mom and dad decided that Jazz, who was born as a boy, was really a girl. Jazz has never gone through puberty, was put on puberty blockers extremely early on. Jazz had bottom surgery when, I'm going to use she because I'm respectful of the pronouns. I really do try. When she was 17, so a minor. And now it seems as though Jazz is having some regrets. And a lot of people are covering this, and I want to as well, because I was watching the show I Am Jazz back in the before times when I was a Democrat, all right? But I was watching this like up to Jazz's bottom surgery, and then I kind of stopped watching after that. I just stopped being interested in it. But I actually do remember when these episodes originally aired. And to see what's happened now, yeah, I'm gonna say it's hard, and I do want to talk about this as we read this article, because when I was a Democrat, I did not pick up on the Munchausen by proxy vibes at all. Not at all. I genuinely thought this was a family that's trying to help their kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it really didn't occur to me what was actually going on at that time, because to be quite frank, I just wasn't paying attention. And I think a lot of people are in that boat. And so I want to talk about kind of my perception as a Democrat back in the day watching these episodes, and how my perception has transitioned now, no pun intended, in regards to Jazz Jennings. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that saga. Then I have this video. Has anyone seen this video? This video is heartbreaking. This video is from a detransitioner named Prisha Mosley. and we're going to listen to Prisha telling her story about her transition and what happened and how it was botched and all of that. And we're going to talk about that because this listen, I don't talk about the detransitioner stuff as much as everyone else, as much as a lot of other people do. The reason that I don't talk about the detransitioner stuff a lot is not that my heart doesn't go out to them. It's not that I don't think it's an important issue. It's just that I can only tackle so many gut wrenching, like heavy, really sad, disturbing topics at one time. And I have personally decided that the detransitioner issue is just something that I can't live in all day, every day because of how sad it is. And I understand that that makes me feel really selfish because then I look like people like Prisha and I'm like, she has to live with this every day of her life and she deserves to have people advocating for her just as and I understand like how important it is to advocate for people like her because it was because no one spoke up for her that she ended up in this position in the first place, and that never should have happened. And I don't know what the balance is between being able to cover these issues and maintaining my sanity. I do know there are a lot of people out there who are doing an excellent and wonderful job covering these issues, and so I'm hoping I can kind of leave it to them. But I do every once in a while want to highlight stories like this, and I think her story is an important one to highlight. And so we're gonna watch her video and we're going to talk about that. And I want to make sure as many people see it as possible because it is really devastatingly bad. Then we're going to go into more Mises Caucus drama to wrap up the day. We're going to talk about the fact that the Mises Caucus is still lying about what happened in New Hampshire. And most importantly, I want to wrap up today with the fact that one of I think the last remaining potential Mises Caucus organizer over the weekend basically submitted his resignation and said, "You guys done effed up so badly that there's no fixing this in New Hampshire." And last night, a little birdie sent me his resignation letter um, and said, "You know what? Maybe this would offer a different perspective to people about what is going on in New Hampshire." And I was quite frankly really glad that the little birdie sent me Sean's resignation letter to the Mises Caucus because Sean is like one of the best guys in the world. He is so smart. He is such a driven activist, really just successful person, like, and just like really nice dude. Like, I have so much respect for Sean Dempsey. I don't always agree with Sean Dempsey, but I have a lot of respect for him. And had he been willing to take on what would now be the thankless job of being the Mises Caucus organizer in New Hampshire, I would have probably tried to find a way to work with him, to be quite frank with you, because I don't have any ill will or ill spirit towards him. But the fact is that he saw the writing on the wall, and you're going to see this in his letter. There ain't going to be any more Mises Caucus in New Hampshire. And I personally find that very sad. But the Mises Caucus is still out there lying to people about what happened and what they did and taking absolutely no responsibility for it at all. And so if they want to continue to lie about it, I will continue to report on it. And that's just the way it's going to go. That's what happens when you use someone for 2 fucking years and then declare to that person that they were never really involved and you don't want to be associated with them. Well, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, mother effers. You want to use me? Then I'm going to make sure that people know exactly what's going on. Maybe I'm a little triggered because I feel like the Republicans did exactly the same thing with me, where they used me to be their token Democrat who changed her mind for 2 effing years, or not 2 effing years, for 1 year in 2020 to try to get people to change their votes during the election. And then as soon as the election was over and I said, I'm going to go become a libertarian because it's better for me, I was smeared. I was ostracized. I was canceled. I was like attacked 19 ways from Sunday. And I have always harbored, and I should probably work on exercising my feelings on this. I have always harbored a lot of resentment towards Republicans and conservatives for using me as their mouthpiece to the Democratic Party and then smearing me and canceling me completely unfairly as soon as I decided that the Libertarian Party was a better fit for me moving forward. And now the fucking Mises Caucus has done exactly the same thing. So I'm obviously repeating a pattern that I'm supposed to learn some life lesson from. I think that life lesson is I need to go on my own and just like not involve myself in politics at all because they have no principles whatsoever. That might be the lesson I'm learning in this, but we're going to keep talking about it because I do think it's important for people to hear these things and to hear that none of these people are going to come and save you. Even the people I believed in, that was my fault. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Shame on me in this particular case. But I'm learning the lessons I think I need to learn on that one. All right, guys. So that's what we got to have on the docket today. Now, I just want to remind everyone that please make sure you are subscribed to my Substack if you are not already. The Substack was a little light on content last week because, to be quite frank, I was dealing with Mises Caucus and Libertarian nonsense for half the week. So I do appreciate people's patience. I actually do have a lot of articles in the queue that are in various states of finish. So you're probably going to see a lot more articles come out from the Substack this week about various issues. We're going to talk about detransition. We're going to talk about schools covering stuff up. We're going to talk about like some basic woke 101 stuff. So there is going to be a lot of stuff coming out from the Substack. You can subscribe for free at Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. My Substack is my primary content hub. Fun fact, it's not YouTube, it's not Twitter, it is actually Substack. I get 10 times the views on Substack that I get on YouTube. I don't even try to calculate my views on Twitter anymore. But I do actually get a lot more views there than I do here. So basically my YouTube is now supplementary to the content that I'm doing on Substack. I'm really excited about the content I'm doing on Substack. I'm trying to deliver you the most unique content about the anti-woke space or that you need to know about the woke ideology, things like that. I'm breaking it down in plain English. I'm trying to make it accessible for everyone. If you would like to support the work I'm doing and get some cool perks along with that, please consider subscribing to my Substack today for $5 a month or for $50 a year. Now, I do have a goal. I need to get another 30 some odd paid subscriptions by the end of the month, which is just a couple days away. I know I slacked last week, so we might be a little bit lax on our goal this month because I know that was kind of my fault. But I would like to get another 30 paid subscriptions by the end of the month to keep me on track with the goals that I have for the end of the year to be able to basically do unwoke activism full time, to be able to explain these stories to you guys on a full time basis, to be able to walk you through the content, to be able to help you, all that stuff. Bot says, what happens if I don't make the goal? Well, like I said, just because I was a little bit out of commission last week in terms of the Substack, I think probably nothing, but I will tell you what happens if I don't make the goal in April. I am going to put up a paywall on the Substack so that if you're not a paid subscriber, you won't be able to read the articles anymore. I don't really want to do that. I want to keep my articles free for everyone. And the goal is going to be the goal in April. It's going to basically compound with the leftovers that I didn't get in this month. But I'm not going to punish people because I got bent out of commission for a month with all the libertarian nonsense. So probably nothing this month, but I am asking people that we do need to keep on track. And if I can't keep on track with paid subscriptions, I will eventually put up a paywall on the Substack. So if you can financially support the work I'm doing, I would humbly ask that you do that now. And guess what? When you financially support the work I'm doing, there is a weekly newsletter called the Unwoke Roundup. You can see yesterday's edition here. Click into that newsletter for me, and you will be able to access your supporter perks for supporting the work I'm doing within the newsletter. And where the supporter perks are located is all the way down at the bottom of the newsletter. And this little red box right here, when you are a paid supporter on my Substack, this is going to go away. And what you're going to see is an invitation to my supporter Discord where we do weekly movie nights every Sunday at 8 p.m. Next Sunday, we're watching American Beauty. I'm really excited about it. It's the official start of my month of narcissism in the movie night because I don't usually pick out the movie for movie night. Other people pick it out. But in my month of narcissism, I get to pick out all the movies. So we're watching American Beauty. We're watching The Legend of Billie Jean. We're watching Wet Hot American Summer. We're watching The Wolf of Wall Street. And then as a special bonus movie in May, because there was a scheduling snafu, we are watching Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It's going to be an amazing month of narcissism. These are some amazing movies. If you've never seen them, come and join us for movie night in the supporter Discord. You can join us either by becoming a member on the Substack, becoming a member of this YouTube channel, becoming a paid member of my locals, becoming a paid member of my Patreon. There are all sorts of different options, whatever works best for you. And also, you're going to get to join me for not one, but 2 Zoom calls that occur every single week. So I do a weekly supporter call on Mondays at 7 p.m., so about an hour and a half from now, and on Wednesdays at noon. And at the bottom of the weekly email, you are going to find a Zoom link that will allow you to join the supporter calls. And trust me, they're awesome. We have such a good time. I have the best community on the internet. Brian says, "What happened to Ender's Game?" I want to do Ender's Game. We just need to find a time for it. All right, Brian? We read Ender's Game, the book, for book club in my community not too long ago, and I actually do want to watch the movie. We just have to find a way for Jennifer to slip it into the schedule in a way that makes sense for her. So we're going to figure that out. Don't worry. We will watch it eventually. We actually have a list of about 2 years worth of movies for movie night. So it really is like movie night is the best. We talk about trivia for the movies. We have conversations. We had a great conversation last night after the movie. We watched Goodfellas last night. And so I really recommend if you are a supporter of my work and you're not yet in the supporter Discord and you haven't joined us for a movie night, come and join us this week. We have a really great time with it. We let our hair down. It's the best. All right, guys, let's dig into what I want to talk about for today. So I just want to get the sound up in this browser so that we can actually listen. I think there are some clips in it. So what I want to do is I want to read this article from the American Spectator. Does Jazz Jennings regret transitioning? And I just want to talk about it. And I want to talk about my perception of Jazz Jennings. Basically, again, like I said, if you missed the beginning of the show, I was watching I Am Jazz back when I was a Democrat during like the transition period leading up to her bottom surgery. And again, I do use she her pronouns because I like to be respectful. I think I think that if you want people to show basic respect and courtesy for you, you have to show it to other people. Essentially, I don't want to tell anyone else what to do with the pronoun issue, but that's where I draw the line. Jazz Jennings has done nothing to me. I actually kind of feel bad for Jazz Jennings, if I'm honest about it. Can you imagine having your entire life filmed for public consumption? I know I can't. So I'm going to use she, her pronouns, and people can have whatever feelings they want about that. Let's read. The story of Jazz Jennings, whose parents began their attempts to transition her when she was just 5 years old, born a boy, had a major impact on the acceptance of transgenderism in America. As a child who made TV appearances with Barbara Walters, Jennings was an example par excellence for the perspective that some people innately belong to the opposite gender, an argument that was made more convincing because Jennings' parents had treated her as a girl since early childhood. In recent years, however, Jennings has repeatedly made headlines for health problems that offer counter evidence to the narrative that medicine can seamlessly transition adults or children from one sex to the one they supposedly belong to. So I want to say this. There is no evidence to support to conclude emphatically that Jazz Jennings' mental health problems are related to transition. We don't know. The fact is, they could be related to transition. They also may not be related to transition. I suspect, again, if my entire life was broadcast on reality TV from the time I was a child and I was constantly in the spotlight, whether or not I had transition surgery, to be quite frank, I would probably have some mental health problems. I think most people would have mental health problems if that had happened to them. I don't like the amount of publicity that I have now, and I barely have any anymore, and it's still more than I quite frankly want. And so I can completely understand why there might be mental health problems. I'm just not 100% convinced as of yet that those are directly related to the transition surgery. I'm not saying they aren't. I'm saying that we don't know for sure. Freeman Die Free says they confirmed the Nashville shooter was a female to male trans targeted a Christian school in a state that recently banned transing the kids. Is that confirmed though? Because I think this is a tragedy, first of all, but I also have not looked that much into it because I have been busy all day. I have been on the phone all effing day. Okay. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but I will say this. I did see a tweet that said that if you are seeing that the shooter was trans, that's not true. And so this conflicts with the tweet that I saw maybe 10 minutes before going live. But again, I have not looked into this yet, so I don't know what's true and what's not true. But I appreciate the super chat. And if someone could go and get more of a confirmation on what is true, can you send me a link via my Twitter DMs? So that I can see that because and again, I'm not questioning you. I'm just the only reason I would question it is I literally saw a tweet from someone that I do respect, like, because I don't know you, like, and so no offense, but like I literally saw it right before I went live and I just didn't have the time to look into it. So if you can send me an article, that would be great. Okay, Andy No confirmed it. Well, I would really like to see an article from a reputable news outlet confirming it. I'm not questioning Andy No. I think Andy No is impeccable. I just want to see it because I think that a lot of information gets spread on Twitter that is not always true. All right. Well, then that's going to be the way it is. Maybe you can guide someone else in the chat to the article and they can send it to me. But again, until I can actually see it, I'm not going to take it as the gospel because no offense to you, I'm sure you're a great person. People lie on the internet. All right? Well, it says it's a woman, but were they trans is the question because I think the trans thing, were they a woman or were they a trans woman? That's the question because it's the trans thing that I've already seen debunked somewhere. But that might be a lie. I don't know. I'm not making a judge. I am not saying either way. Anyway, let's continue. A botched penile inversion vaginoplasty, there we go, that Jazz underwent at the age of 17 required multiple corrective surgeries and left her with greatly diminished sexual function. So these are the episodes of I Am Jazz that I watched at the time. And I gotta tell you, it was kind of terrifying to watch that play out. But the way that it was presented, and the reason I'm telling you guys this is because I want people to understand how Democrats perceive this, because I was definitely a Democrat when I was watching these episodes. It was kind of like it was clear that there were complications. It was clear that Jazz Jennings was in a lot of pain. It was clear that something didn't go as planned, but the way the episode made you feel was okay, surgeries have complications. This is something that's going to have to be dealt with, but ultimately it's going to be okay and it was probably the best decision. I'm not saying suggesting that's what I would say now. I'm saying that at the time, being someone on the left that was watching these, just kind of not being pretty oblivious to what was going on in the world because I wasn't watching anything that wasn't lefty political news. So that was how I perceived it. Okay. Was that, okay, this is bad. It's obviously something bad has happened, but you didn't they didn't get you to blame the doctors. They made the doctors out to be kind of like the hero. They didn't get you to blame like the parents. The parents were also made out to be a hero. It was more like this is just what happens when there's surgery, there's complications, etc., etc. Now I look at the situation and I'm like, more and more information is coming out about the long-term effects of puberty blockers on kids when they're basically not going through puberty. And what happened with Jazz Jennings was because Jazz had always been on puberty blockers, the penis had basically atrophied and it was like really, really small because Jazz had never gone through puberty. And so, because the penis was really small, they didn't have enough skin to actually perform the normal surgery. And Jazz was, I think, one of the earlier people that they had ever actually tried this on, where they had put Jazz on puberty blockers so young that they didn't account for the fact that when it came time to do the transition surgery, that there would not be enough skin to work with. And I'm fairly sure they took skin from like her stomach to be able to complete the procedure or whatever. But it was like, it didn't occur to me at the time. It was like, so they didn't have a plan. They didn't know the consequences of it. They basically they had never thought through the consequences of their actions of doing this to kids and how it might lead to a worse outcome long term because like, they just hadn't thought about the fact that functionally, it was going to make it very, very difficult to perform this surgery. One of Jennings' surgeons, Marcy Bowers, later went public with hesitancy towards the World Professional Association for Transgendered Health Standards Care for Children. Marcy Bowers is also trans. Arguing the practice of giving 11-year-olds testosterone blockers and 13-year-olds estrogen treatment has made it impossible for doctors to later perform a traditional penile inversion vaginoplasty, on them, as doctors are required to take skin grafts in order to have enough tissue, often leaving patients with poor outcomes. Okay, Boom Her, who I do trust because Boom Her has been in my community forever. No offense, free men die free, but I know who Boom Her is, and she has developed credibility with me. NBC is confirming Andy has the right name, Audrey, who identifies as she, him. Oh well, I mean, that's gonna be a whole other fresh hell, isn't it? We'll have to look into that tomorrow. This is exactly what happened with Jennings. Her surgery was performed with stomach lining material to make up for the lack of available tissue. Soon after the surgery, her neovagina, I don't like that term if I'm honest about it, split apart. 3 corrective surgeries over a period of years were subsequently performed. Can you imagine what it must have been like to have 4 surgeries performed on your genitals when you're 18 or round about that age? So they started when Jazz was 17. I don't know like how old Jazz is now. It's probably been like 4 years. So between the ages of 17 and 21, you have 4 surgeries performed on your genitals? Can you imagine what a mind F that must be? Can you imagine the healing process of that? And by the way, the brain isn't even fully developed to process logic and reason until you're in your mid 20s, essentially until you're 25. That would make anyone depressed. I'm sorry. That would make anyone depressed. And Jazz was probably, and this is the impression that I got on the show, Jazz probably thought these surgeries were going to be the thing that would make her feel whole, that would make her feel like herself, that would be this big culmination of all of of her entire life. I bet this was one of the most anticlimactic things that's ever happened, because you're having this final surgery at 17 years old. It's kind of like going off to college and then finding out your college is like a hellscape, right? Like, except it's even worse than that because you've made permanent medical changes to your body. But I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of like a 17-year-old, right? So it's like, and going off to college is a big thing for a 17-year-old. That's why I chose that example. It's probably a horrible example. I'll probably get help for it later, whatever. Anyway, you're 17 years old. You've got in your mind that this surgery is going to fix everything. This surgery is going to complete you. This surgery is going to make you who you are. This surgery is going to take care of all of your mental health problems and all of your depression. Which, by the way, I'm not necessarily saying that Jazz had depression because they were trans. I'm saying that a lot of kids have depression. I was depressed when I was that age. If you gave me a magic surgery that told me that it was going to fix everything, I would probably be really excited too. And then not only does this surgery not fix everything, but the surgery goes horribly wrong. The whole thing falls apart. Literally, your newly formed nether regions completely fall apart. You have to have 3 more surgeries to fix the problem, and you can't even start living your life, which was supposed to be perfect because Jazz Jennings was supposed to go off to Harvard, was supposed to have this perfect life as a girl. Now that they've had their transition surgery, everything was supposed to be great. And now not only is everything not great, you have to have even more surgeries on your genitals before you're even old enough to have an alcoholic drink. That is a goddamn nightmare. Who wouldn't get depressed with that situation? Man, I think there was some naivete on the part of the pediatric endocrinologists who were proponents of early puberty blockade, thinking that this was that this just that just this magic can happen, that surgeons can do anything, said Bowers in an interview with Abigail Schreier, the author of Irreversible Damage. Oh, that's interesting that she interviewed with Abigail. But honestly, Bowers continued, I can't sit here and tell you that people who begin transitioning as children have better or even good results. They're not as functional. I worry about their reproductive rights later. I worry about their sexual health and their ability to find intimacy. So I don't know if this article is going to talk about it, but I saw a clip of Marcy Bowers talking about this over the weekend. And basically, what Marcy Bowers said, and can you imagine this? Marcy Bowers said that she had never worked with a trans kid that had had this transition surgery as a kid, that had been on puberty blockers as a kid. She had never worked with one that was able to have an orgasm after this surgery. Can you imagine living an entire life in which you had an optional surgery as a child that prevented you from having an orgasm your entire life? That you will never know what it's like to have an orgasm? That you have that taken away from you because your parents and your doctors convince you as a child that you need to do this? That's awful. That is mind-blowingly depressing. Yeah, that's a cruel torture. It really, really is. Following the initial surgeries, Jennings gained over 100 pounds through binge eating and experienced a range of mental health disorders. Jennings' mother, Jeanette, deflected theories that the difficulties were caused by the penile inversion vaginoplasty and argued that Jazz had long experienced mental health issues. Well, yes, that's true. They documented it on the show, which, by the way, if you're documenting your teenager's mental health issues on national effing television, that's probably child abuse now that we're thinking about it. Jazz Jennings couldn't have had any idea of what it meant to display your mental health issues on a reality TV show. But her parents damn well should have known better. Her parents never should have allowed this to happen. This is entirely her parents' fault, and not just the mother. I'm sorry, I know the mother is more prominent in the show than the father, but the father is there. The father lives in the flipping house. It's not like they're divorced or anything. They're both responsible for this, so far as I'm concerned. And like, and by the way, so for people who never watched the show, that wasn't the first time Jazz had gained a lot of weight. In fact, there were several episodes of the show leading up to the bottom surgery in which Jazz had to lose a lot of weight in order to be eligible for the bottom surgery. So, this gaining of over 100 pounds, that was not the first time that happened. They all knew that Jazz was doing this. Jeanette Jennings claimed that Jazz's happiest time in life had been during the year following the first surgery, though she acknowledged that Jazz had spiraled thereafter into a depressive state and could barely get out of bed in the morning. Season 8 of the TLC show on Jennings' life, I Am Jazz, is now airing, and in a recent episode, Jennings has an alarming conversation with her mother. In a clip that has gone viral over the past week, Jennings says that she is completely broken and unable to be her true self. What if Jazz Jennings was just a little gay boy? What if Jazz Jennings, when she was 2 years old, was just a little gay boy that was just an effeminate gay boy? And the mother latched onto this and said, because you are effeminate, you must be a girl, and we must convince you that you are a girl. That's tragic. Sometimes, like, children are just little gay boys. Or dare I say, they're fucking butch lesbians in the training, in the making. They have more masculine energy. It can happen. Tomboys are a thing. Tomboys are a real thing. They don't always grow up to be butch lesbians. You know, a lot of them grow up to be straight, but they are a real thing. Exactly. Transing away the gay. One has to wonder if a lifetime of hormone treatments and surgeries intended to alter her appearance might have something to do with that. Jazz explains to her mother that she keeps going back to negative and that she can't get out of her head. She explains it just doesn't stop. Well, that's what depression is. And I also wonder too, how do the hormones, like, is Jazz on antidepressants? And how do the hormones interact with the antidepressants? I don't know the answer to that at all. It just popped into my head. Jazz's mother attempts to stop the breakdown and convince Jazz, who in a recent episode went on a date with a woman, that everything will be all right. It's okay. Give me a hug. I know what you're going through. We've been there before, she says. Jazz then comes clean with the truth. I just want to feel like myself, like that's it. I don't care, she says. All I want is to be happy and feel like me. I don't feel like me ever. Take note of what Jazz Jennings says here. I don't feel like me ever. So let's watch this clip real quick for people who haven't seen it.
So, are you feeling like you wanted to start talking about? Are you okay?
I'm okay.
I'm gonna cry.
You know I can't get out of my head.
I know. No, listen.
It just doesn't stop.
It's okay. Give me a hug. It's okay. I know what you're going through. We've been there before.
No, it still doesn't stop now. And I'm already going back to
the
negative.
But the more you're talking about yourself, it gets harder. You're digging in, and it's making you put a magnifying glass on what's already difficult as it is. So this is hard for you. I know, and we don't want to push you
I
anymore.
know I'm the one doing it. Like,
I know you're your own worst enemy.
I want to point out here, the mother isn't even listening to Jazz. I don't know if other people see this, but it is extremely clear to me. The mother is not listening to the child. The mother is waiting to talk. The mother is not asking Jazz, what do you mean by that? What are you getting at? Like, how are you experiencing that? The mother is asking no questions. The mother's like, it's going to be okay, Jazz. We've been here before. Well, how does the mother know that? She doesn't even really understand what's going on. So how can she sit there and reasonably say, you're going to be okay, Jazz. We've been here before. We know what this is. You're not even asking any probing questions to find out what's going on.
I feel kind of all over the place, and like my mind is very cluttered and not clear. And I really want to have that clarity. I really want to understand myself and be able to read my own soul and what I want. And it's just very challenging. And I think I'm kind of breaking down a little bit and spiraling into negativity. I just want to feel like myself. Like, that's it. I don't
Like
care.
the old Jazz?
All I want is to be happy and feel like me. And I don't feel like
What
me
is me?
ever.
All of those surgeries.
Okay. I don't know who that is, but I don't want to listen to that person. Freaks me out. But yeah, so I don't feel like me ever. Well, guess what? That's true of most people. This is something that they're not teaching to kids that are coming out as trans or queer or non-binary or any of these things when they're in school. Most people don't know who they are. Most people, especially when they're younger, especially when they're going through puberty, feel awkward as F. Most people are not comfortable in their body. That is part of what the process of life is, to teach you through experience who you are, what you like, what you don't like. It's not even normal teen behavior, it's normal people behavior in general. I'm sorry. Like, I am about to, in a couple weeks, have my 13th, 29th birthday. I'm about to turn 42 years old. All right. I know I shouldn't admit that on the internet, but it's true. 40 effing 2 years old. I cannot even believe this. But the reason that I'm saying this is that is there anyone that is older than their 40s watching right now that remembers what their 20s were like? Because I do. I remember in my 20s, I look back at my 20s now, and I don't think it was actually significantly better than being a teenager in terms of like how I saw the world or how I saw myself. Radical Moderate says, I swear I thought you were in your late 20s. Oh, Radical Moderate, this is why I love you. Yeah. Can we all remember back to our 20s for those of us who have, perhaps a little more seasoning, a little more wisdom, a little more life experience, and say that you don't know who you are in your 20s? And I know if anyone in their 20s is watching right now, they might not understand this yet because you feel like you're an adult, you're making your own money, you're out in the world, you're making your mark or whatever. You don't know shit in your 20s, man. You don't know what's going on. I'm sorry. And when you turn 30, it's going to get a little bit better. I promise you, your 30s are so much better than your 20s. I didn't want to turn 30. I was depressed as hell when I turned 30. I didn't even want to celebrate my birthday. My coworkers threw me a birthday party. I didn't want to go. I was actually really depressed when I turned 30, okay? My 30s turned out to be so much better than my 20s. Light years better than my 20s. And guess what? My 40s are already better than my 30s. Life is a process of experience. You don't know who you are as a teenager. We need to be teaching people that. You don't even know who you are in your 20s. That's when you're discovering yourself. That's when you're getting out into the world. That's when you are experiencing different aspects of life in a way that you can interact with it fully as an adult, but that doesn't mean you know everything. So we need to start teaching kids that this is just what life is. If you don't know everything in your teens, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. If you don't know everything in your 20s, guess what? That's how it's supposed to be, because life is about experience. And so to have in your mind at all that you are going to know exactly who you are and exactly what you want when you are that young is simply unrealistic. Jeanette, for the most part, tries to dissuade Jazz from introspecting too deeply, but the more you're talking about yourself, it gets harder. You're digging in and it's making you put a magnifying glass on what's already difficult as it is. So this is hard for you, I know, and we don't want to push it. Her mother should be sending her to therapy, is what needs to be going on. Jeanette, of course, has made millions off of Jazz's transition and became famous for it. She now runs her own organization, the Trans Kids Purple Rainbow Foundation, which aims to enhance the lives of transgender and gender nonconforming youth and their families. Jeanette has adamantly supported Jazz's transition and pushed Jazz to incorporate every available mode of transition to appear as much as possible as though she is a woman. Andre says, you know why, Carlin? There's scientific equations, karmic life laws are real that the average human takes 20 to 30 years to learn the top 20 respects definitions as skills plus as laws. I really appreciate that, Andre. I'd like to learn more about that. Thank you for sharing that. A recent clip from the TLC series shows Jeanette pressuring Jazz to dilate his neo-vagina. And again, I hate that term so much. Every day, Jeanette says that if Jazz doesn't do it, she will wring Jazz's neck. Men who undergo a penile inversion vaginoplasty are expected to dilate the open womb for over 2 hours a day for up to 2 years post-surgery, or shorter periods of time for the rest of their life. Otherwise, their womb can shrink. Can you imagine? 2 hours a day? 2 hours a day. Thank you, Andre. I appreciate that. Michael says, just a wee message to say thank you for covering this without the spice. The topic has so much depth, yet few want to acknowledge that. Thank you, Michael. I really do appreciate that. 2 hours a day? How do you even find the time? Okay, I'm going to give a little tip to the men watching. And I know a lot of the men watching are probably gay just because I attract gay men like moths to a flame. But just in case there are some straight men watching, I want to give you guys a little inside info. Sex, usually, no, there are exceptions to every rule, all right? So I'm not saying this is a universal rule, but I'm just saying that sex usually, for a woman, in my experience, if it goes on too long, becomes really effing boring. And it is no reflection on the person that you're with, usually. It's just that there is a time when it's really fun, and then if it continues to go on for too long, it gets boring and frustrating, and you have to kind of like fake it to get the act over with, because you reach a point where, you know, you're just over it and you want to go do something else. All right. And I see the women in the chat agreeing with me. They're like, yes. That time period, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, is significantly less than 2 hours. Okay? I cannot imagine anything more torturous than dilating for 2 hours a day every single day of my life for the oh my god, what fresh hell is that? Wow. We have this tweet from Gays Against Groomers, and by the way, I think Gays Against Groomers is really awfully anti-trans lately, and I don't say that lightly. I just have enough inside information about Gays Against Groomers to know that they're basically against all trans people now, which I don't think is a good look, but whatever. They posted the clip, so let's see. They posted this clip. Jazz Jennings' mother speaks about forcing Jazz to dilate further mutilate their neo-vagina to keep the womb from closing. It's the brazen openness to admit to child abuse on national television. For us, this monster belongs behind bars. Well, I'm going to set that aside for a moment because I don't agree with Gays Against Groomers there. But let's watch the clip.
But with her, I'm worried about like her mental well-being and her dilation. The minute she leaves my house, we have a dilation problem.
That is a concern. When you don't have that watchful eye, they tend to go back to old patterns.
I have woken Jazz out of a dead sleep and taken the dilator and put the lubrication on it and said, here, you take this and you put it in your vagina. If not, I will. But Jazz is bad, even when I'm home once a day. I would be so mad if she goes away to college and that thing seals up. I would wring her neck. Can you imagine? No, I can't imagine.
This mother is way too intrusive. We need to ask Joshua about this mother tomorrow night. We need to ask Joshua if this mother has Munchausen's by proxy. She's way too intrusive. It's weird, okay? That's just weird and creepy. Jeanette Jennings says she has woken up Jazz in the middle of the night and demanded that she dilate her neo-vagina. She said, I have woken, we already just saw the clip, I don't need to read that. Jazz's hesitancy to partake in this perhaps says something about her enthusiasm for undergoing a vaginoplasty. Yes, this was indeed on TV. Yes, it was. Indeed, it was. Another piece of evidence that Jennings is not as gung-ho as her mother on being surgically crafted into an imitation of a woman, I don't think that that's fair, is her recent assertion, God damn it, that the genitalia should not matter. By the way, guys, again, the reason I'm using the she, her pronouns is because I think that conservative publications come across as looking spiteful and petty when they refuse to honor what people actually want to be called. Again, I think people deserve basic respect and courtesy. That's my position. You're welcome to disagree with it. If we don't define someone's life based on what's between their legs, things would be so much different, Jazz says during an episode. Aha, a moment of enlightenment that perhaps Jazz should have been allowed to come to on their own prior to having genital surgery 4 effing times. Nick says, wife definitely agrees with your assessment of sex. I know. And again, it's not a reflection on you, gentlemen. It has nothing to do with you at all. It's just that, you know, that's just the way it goes. All right. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Thank you. Thank you, Nick Incognito. The medical issues that Jazz Jennings has encountered show just how disastrous gender transition is medically. It's ironic because Jeanette Jennings meant for Jazz's transition to inspire thousands of children to join Jazz in altering their sex. But that could be the unintentional effect. Could the unintentional effect be greater than that? Jazz's recent statement, I don't feel like me ever, raises the specter that Jennings, despite being the poster child for transgenderism and having had this pushed on her since the age of 2, may herself be secretly devastated by what was done to them. Well, I think that's reading into it a bit much. Maybe. Could it be? Sure. Maybe. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying that's inferring mind reading that I don't think is healthy. If Jazz regrets transitioning, Jeanette Jennings' goal to advance transgenderism through jazz could majorly backfire. I mean, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something if Jazz Jennings ended up detransitioning? Could Jazz Jennings even detransition now? If they wanted to? How would Jazz Jennings' mother react if after all of this, Jazz decided to detransition? I mean, that's scary. Can you imagine how scary that would be for Jazz? Who, by the way, if Jazz, and I'm not suggesting I know this for a fact because again, we don't know. We don't know either way. But if Jazz Jennings in their head wants to detransition, but is afraid to tell their mother because of the show and because of the spotlight and because of the notoriety, that's gonna fuck Jazz Jennings up something fierce. You think Jazz Jennings has mental health issues now? Just wait to watch what happens in a couple years if all of this really did turn out to be a mistake, because Jazz Jennings is going to be a train wreck. And I don't say that with any sort of celebration. I think it's a sad thing. I think that Jazz Jennings needs to go to a real therapist, not the trans therapist, a real therapist, to talk about this and to work through what has happened to her her entire life. But the last thing I want to say on this one before we move on to this other detransitioner video I want to watch is I really want everyone to keep in mind Jazz Jennings is a victim of this ideology. It is not Jazz Jennings' fault what has happened. It is because Jazz Jennings listened to the adults in her life that she is in the situation that she is in right now. So I really want to encourage everyone. Attacking Jazz Jennings is not going to be productive in this particular fight. If you want to talk about the mother, then fine. Have at the mother. And by the way, have at the father too, because he was involved in all of this. But I would just really refrain from insulting Jazz Jennings, being combative towards Jazz Jennings, because Jazz Jennings is a victim of this, and it does not make our side look good to be attacking victims who have been dragged into this ideology by the people that they trusted most in life. If they had just waited, allow Jazz to socially transition, allow Jazz to wear dresses, allow Jazz to dress up as a mermaid, allow Jazz to, grow their hair long or whatever. If they had just waited, this started when she was 2 years old. She was a kid and was in. Just because you turn 18 doesn't mean your brain shuts off to the rest of what you've experienced in life. It started 21 years ago. It is not a good look to attack people and further victimize people who have been victimized their entire life. It's just not a good look. And it is going to win no points. And it's going to gain nothing except increased hate and vitriol. Jazz Jennings is the victim here. And I hope people keep that in mind. I suspect they won't, but I hope they do. But that's not the only story about transitioning I want to talk about today. I want to show you guys this video. I need to set up the sound. There we go. And this is a video that was shared by my friend Gabrielle Clark. And it is a heartbreaking video. It's about 4 minutes long. And I just want to make sure as many people as possible see it. And I'm going to put Gabs's tweet into the chat. If you are on Twitter, please share this video because I think it's really important. So Gab says, this is Prisha Mosley. She's traveling around the country giving her testimony to governing bodies about detransitioning. She'll be traveling again on Sunday, so yesterday. She asks for protection and grace. Please bless her with safe travels. Let's listen to Prisha's testimony.
Hi. Oh, hello. Oh, my name is Prisha Mosley. I am a detransitioning woman who began my social transition at 15 years old. I legally changed my name, changed my hair and clothes, and bound my breasts. Breast binding caused permanent damage to my back and ribs. I was love bombed by the trans community who found me through the pro anorexia community. They encouraged me for every change I made and promised me that I was curing myself. I was told that my depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, and borderline would all go away if I transitioned, but it wasn't true. We know that trans people, and have heard other people on the other side say that there are multiple, often other comorbidities, and these are usually pushed aside when the child utters the word gender. Changing the body is not the cure for the mind or mental suffering. We have already tried this and failed with lobotomies. Starting at 17, high doses of testosterone were injected into my anorexic body. The side effects were severe, are permanent, and started within days. One of the first things to change was my genitals. Before a week was over, they were painful. Parts were growing and others were beginning to atrophy away and have not stopped. This pain increased for months and now is so severe that I can no longer use tampons. I have never gotten to experience a normal period. Before starting testosterone, it had already stopped because I was not eating. I was put on hormones anyway. The damage from the testosterone is permanent, however, and I will not heal from it like I healed from my eating disorder. I am also suffering from chronic pain. Wrong sex testosterone causes the redistribution of muscle and fat into a masculine position, which the female frame cannot support. My hips are so small and my shoulders are so large that I am in constant burning pain. It hurts to hold myself up. Testosterone also caused me to have joint pain, which I will suffer from for the rest of my life. On top of this, I lost my ability to sing. Gender affirming care took my voice away. I used to get so much joy from singing, and that has been robbed from me. Now I can no longer bear the sound I make when I open my mouth to sing or when I cry, and it is painful to even speak for long periods. I cannot raise my voice to scream if I'm in danger. Testosterone silenced me. Worst of all, I am most likely infertile. No doctor will touch me. They have all abandoned me since I began to detransition, but I am aware of this fact. I did not want to have children when I was given informed consent shortly after being raped. I was too traumatized and not old enough to know, but my doctors didn't care. My doctors and therapist blackmailed my parents into fast-tracking me down the path to lifelong medicalization. 1 year after starting hormones, my healthy breasts were removed. The surgery was incredibly traumatizing. During this procedure, which is performed on minors, all of the healthy mammary tissue is removed, as well as fat and skin. While this is happening, the nipples are cut up, reshaped, and frozen. The chest is then scraped, and the new nipples are sewn onto the bleeding wound. One day after my surgery, I removed my bandages to find pieces of my nipples looking back at me, stuck to the bandages. I'm missing pieces of them now. Breast reconstruction will consist of at least 3 more traumatizing surgeries and will not give me back what I lost. My breasts have been incinerated, and I will never be able to feed my children. I urge you to vote for a bill that protects children from so-called gender-affirming care. I want to be the last person to suffer this way. Please don't let any other vulnerable, mentally ill children become a lifelong medical patient like me. Let them keep their healthy bodies. Thank you.
I had to show that to you guys, and I know that was hard to listen to, and I know that This is why we don't make fun of kids who've been indoctrinated into this ideology. Because when you make fun of kids that started, even if they're adults now, you make it more difficult for them if they do want to transition to speak out or to go back. And I think that it's important that we do hear from as many people as possible about the impacts of this ideology. It doesn't make it easier for these kids, and I really do think that a lot of them end up getting emotionally stunted at the point where they started on, like, puberty blockers, or at least in their teens. I really do. Can you imagine how hard that was? Can you imagine giving that speech in public to your city council? Now imagine that you have a whole room of people that are against you because of something that was forced on you as a child when you didn't know better. The part of that speech that really kind of like hit me the most, and there were so many parts of it that were just devastating, was that doctors won't help her. Doctors won't help her because she's detransitioning. Doctors pressured her parents into pushing her towards medicalization. And I have heard so many stories about doctors basically telling parents that if you don't allow your kids to get this surgery now, then they're going to commit suicide. They're emotionally blackmailing these parents. I mean, if you were a parent and you were like involved in this stuff, you probably want to do what's best for your kid. And the doctors, the medical doctors are telling you it's either transition surgery as a minor or your kid might commit suicide. And it's not even the doctors, it's the schools too. Absolutely. My heart goes out to her. My heart goes out to all of the kids that have been like indoctrinated into this ideology. Thank you for the super chat, Might Be Batman. I appreciate it. But this is why I think it's important to go after the ideology and not the victims of the ideology, even if they're adults. This is why I think it's important to have a nuanced perspective of this, to know that these kids are being pushed into this when they're young. It is not their fault. It is the fault of their teachers. It is the fault of the doctors. It is the fault of the therapists. It is the fault of the school administrators. It is the fault of the adults in the room that are supposed to be the adults. And then if the parents are continuing to push the kids towards this, yeah, I'm sorry, it's the fault of the parents too. And I can give parents a little bit of leeway because a lot of parents don't know. But at some point, you would have thought that they would question whether or not cutting off healthy body parts was going to be a good long-term benefit. So I just wanted to make sure everyone saw that video. And please share it. Again, I will put the link in the chat one more time. Please share the video. If you're not on Twitter, then I'm sure this video exists other places. And you know, please share these stories when you find them. And again, I feel a little bit like like I haven't done a good enough job covering the detransitioner stuff. And the reason that I haven't been doing it is because, to be quite frank, this is really difficult for me to watch. And it should be difficult for everyone to watch, but I also don't appreciate the vitriol that I get when I refuse to demonize these kids. And I do get vitriol. I get angry emails. I get angry messages from people on the right that desperately want me to demonize these kids, but I think that these kids are victims of this ideology, and I refuse to do it. And so, if we want real change, we have to start treating each other as human beings, and demanding that people have a certain perspective on these things. I don't think it's helpful to actually solving the problem. So I wanted to make sure everyone saw that, and now we are going to move on to other topics. All right, we are going to do some other topics. Let me just there's a couple things I want to talk about that hopefully are going to be a little bit lighter, okay? So we're transitioning. We just did some really dark heavy stuff. I want to move into a lighter topic. And what I want to talk about real quick is AI art. So, let me get this up. So, I have been playing with a whole bunch of AI art tools. And the one I like best right now is a tool called Midjourney. Now, I have a bunch of different tools that I've tried out. Midjourney, I just think is really cool. It runs on Discord. It has it's just like it functions. Once you figure out how it functions, it's really good and really interesting. And you get so many cool designs, and it's actually really powerful, and you get to see what other people are doing, which I think is actually kind of cool. The reason that I want to talk about AI art is because I am going to have an Unwoke art contest. All right. For those of you, and this is hopefully going to get us all in a better mood. All right. Because I think that when you're talking about heavy topics, being creative and having fun with the tools that we have available can be one of those things that helps us to fight back against this ideology. So I have a store called unwokeart.com. You can find a link in the description below. I also have this Substack where I'm starting to post some of my Unwoke designs. Like I've got this one, Joe Biden's presidential portrait. I've got this one. I've got Joe Biden's ignorance is bliss. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff in my art store. You can subscribe to my Substack to get updates whenever I post a new design. And the reason I like AI art is because it makes art accessible for anyone. And I think that art can help change the way we see the world. Art can help change the way we see issues. And I think that I know people poo-poo AI because they're like real people spend their time trying to become master artists, and I have nothing but respect for people who become master artists. I have nothing but respect for them. I think it's really cool. I own a bunch of original art. I will continue to buy original art. I have nothing but love for the real artists. But I think that AI is really important in terms of making these things accessible to everyone. And one of the things I wanted to show you guys is I think that AI can change how we can use this as a tool to help us change how we see ourselves. And so I was playing around in Midjourney the other day. And one of the things that's cool about Midjourney is it's in a Discord server. All right. And so you basically go into a Discord channel and you throw prompts at the Discord channel and it generates you AI art. Well, when you're in the Discord channel, you're able to see everything that everyone else is creating. And so I just happened to be in a channel the other night when Bot and Nick and I were playing around with it to create different things, and I saw this person put this prompt into the AI, and what they did, it was so cool. And I have to assume that this is actually the person that did it, but they uploaded a picture of this guy of this person that we see in these pictures. So they uploaded a basic headshot and then they said, "I want to see this person standing tall as Superman." And so the AI took that, they took that photo and they put that head on Superman's body and made a bunch of different variations of standing tall as Superman. And I watched that and I was like, isn't that cool? If you want to change the way you see yourself, then why not use AI to make an image of yourself as Superman or as a superhero or as anything that you want? I suppose you could even make yourself as a supervillain as well. I just thought that this was such a cool idea in terms of getting you to change the way you see yourself. Say you're just like an average person. I don't know anything about this guy, right? Say you're just like an average person. You got your average job. You're just going around. You're doing your thing, and you don't see yourself as anything special. But maybe you create an image of yourself where you can see yourself standing tall as Superman. And he actually ended up making a bunch of different variations of this image right here. I guess that was the favorite version of it. And you hang that next to your desk or whatever, and you can actually visually see yourself like, I'm capable of greatness. I'm capable of service. I'm capable of doing big things to help the world, because you can literally see yourself as Superman. Isn't that cool? What a gift that is. And so I think that AI art is incredibly powerful. I think it has the ability to help us change the way we're seeing ourselves. I think it also has the ability to help us change the way we're seeing the world and interact with different things in the world. Let me show you some of the things that I've made. So this is one of my favorites right now. It's the "There Goes Your Hero." Like, I made this on a sticker, a poster. It's a dragon burning down the US Capitol building. I figured that one, if I made a poster of January 6th burning down the US Capitol building, that would probably get me in trouble, right? But if it's a dragon, can anyone really argue? It's obviously fantasy. So what I'm doing with Unwoke art is I'm putting this stuff on a bunch of merchandise. And you can also just, if you're on the Substack, just download the memes. You don't have to pay me money for them. If you want to share the memes, use the memes, whatever. If you want to go in and make your own. And I'm going to be starting an Unwoke art contest where basically I'm going to give you different prompts like struggle session or white supremacy or cancel horde or any of these things. And I want to see people take AI, or if you want to do normal art, you want to paint, you want to draw, you want to create something from scratch, that's totally fine too. But I really want to encourage people to play around with these tools. And you can use any AI art tool that you want. There are like 87,000 out there. And I want to encourage people to play with art, play with these tools that we have available to us to make something creative, to show how you are interpreting these prompts. And you can get so creative, guys. The more creative we can be, the more we can exercise our propensity to actually make things and to put things out there in the world. I just think it'd be so much fun. So I'm going to be starting an AI art contest. If you want more information about that, please make sure you sign up for my Substack, Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. You can also sign up for the Unwoke Art Substack, which is unwokeart.substack.com. And we're going to have a nice little contest, and I'm going to be giving credit out to my AI art store to buy a t-shirt or a hoodie or what have you. And if you want your stuff to be sold in the AI art store, then I will sell it. We can split the profits, whatever. But I think that it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be invigorating. Guys, art can change the way we see the world. Art can be subversive. Art can tackle ideas that are difficult to tackle in other ways. And we all have these wonderful tools available to us. So that's going to be launching this week. Make sure you get signed up for the Substack so that you can be notified when it launches. Chicken Dinner says, keep it up. You have a ton of support. I really do appreciate that, Chicken Dinner. Thank you so much. And then Andre says, AI, like all technology, is only good when it works for you. When it works against you, as in robots wanting their own rights against human rights like Terminator, we'll have a problem. Well, I do agree with that, Andre. I do. And I'm not unsympathetic to some of the criticism of AI art. I'm really not unsympathetic to it, but I also think that we need to use the tools that we have available to us, and it's really fun. And I think creativity is inherent to the human experience, and if we aren't creating things, we're destroying things. So I want us to be creating things and to look at the world in different ways. All right, guys, now I want to move into the libertarian section of the stream. We're going to end with that. And the very first thing I need to do is I actually need to send an apology to the Free State-Based Caucus. And I will resoundingly admit when I am wrong. And I said something on a stream the other day that was wrong about the Free State Based Caucus in New Hampshire. I said that they had blocked me on Twitter and they were engaging in general tomfoolery that I didn't agree with. Now, I do still think they're engaging in general tomfoolery that I'm not fully on board with, but I'm not judging them for that. That's their business. They're allowed to say whatever they want. They're allowed to do whatever they want. And I'm just allowed not to like get involved in it. All right. I don't have any ill will towards the vast majority of people who are involved in this. I have ill will towards one person, and we're going to talk about that one person in a moment, not too in depth, but he is the reason that I was wrong about this. All right. So, well, I should take responsibility. I wasn't looking closely enough. Anyway, I want to send an apology to the Free State Based Caucus because I wrongfully said on a stream yesterday that they had blocked me on Twitter. That turned out not to be true. The reason that I thought that the Free State Based Caucus had blocked me on Twitter is because a member of the Free State Based Caucus that I have a major beef with, that I am not happy with, that I do not think is an honorable person at all, a member of the Free State Based Caucus created this alternative Twitter account called Free State Based with the number 1 after it. They used the Free State Based logo. They labeled it as Free State Based. And by the way, the Free State Based Caucus used to have this as their profile picture. All right. So this to me, when this account blocked me, I thought it was the Free State Based Caucus because I wasn't looking closely. Then the Free State Based Caucus changed back to this logo, or maybe they always had this and I was just confused and I assumed this was the Free State Based Caucus. And I was looking at it yesterday when I was checking to see if I was still blocked, and I found out that I wasn't blocked, and I was like, okay, when did they unblock me? So I really thought that this block from this person was from the Free State Based Caucus general account, but it wasn't. It's just the one person that I have a major beef with, that I do not think is an honorable person, that I think has gone totally fucking Twitter deranged, that I think is only interested in pandering to his worst tendencies on this platform in order to get dopamine hits. And if he were more receptive to any sort of feedback, I wouldn't be as militant about it. But he has gone full on deranged as a result of being addicted to Twitter. Okay. He is the one that blocked me. He had an account that looked exactly like the Free State Based account. And I made an assumption that they were the same. And I apologize. And I just want to make sure that when I am getting something wrong, I am correcting that error. So that's the very first thing I want to say about libertarian drama. I do apologize for spreading that falsehood. I was just confused because they looked exactly the same. But what I really want to talk about is an update in regards to the continued lies from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. Now, we touched on this at the beginning of the show, but I'll just give you a too long didn't read about what is going on with this. I was a member of the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus for 2 years. I supported the Mises Caucus as much as I could possibly support them. I traveled to events to help support the takeover of the Libertarian Party by the Mises Caucus, to include, perfect timing, Kevin from the internet, to include being a delegate at the National Convention in Reno. I have quite literally never said no when someone involved in the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus has asked me to do something, because I felt that it was really important and it was something that I wanted to support, and I did support it for a really long time. Well, I am no longer a member of the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus because they purged every single member in New Hampshire, just kicked everyone out of the caucus, and this asshole, whose name is Jeff Douglas, lied about me to every Mises Caucus organizer in the country, said to my face that I was never really involved in the Mises Caucus, which was news to me since I have spent thousands of dollars out of my own pocket to go to things to support the Mises Caucus. So it was news to me that I was never really involved in the first place, and that they didn't want to be associated with me because I have spiritual beliefs that they don't agree with. You know, nothing says libertarian like demanding that someone adhere to a certain spiritual view of the world. Silly me. I kind of thought that the only thing that I had to do to be a libertarian was to follow the non-aggression principle. And I didn't really think that me discussing spirituality and philosophy and the meaning of life on the internet and throwing ideas out there was going to violate the non-aggression principle. I apparently was mistaken because the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus apparently thinks that words they don't like are violence. Where have I heard that before? So I was told that I was just way too controversial to ever associate with. Never mind that the founder of the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus has been labeled a right-wing bigot. He is fine. Every other man who has said controversial things is fine. But if a woman discusses philosophy and the meaning of life on the internet, well, fuck that cunt. She is way too controversial for us because words are violence when they come from the mouths of women, so far as the Mises Caucus is concerned. So, I have been covering the fact that the Mises Caucus is lying about what happened in New Hampshire. And last night, Jeff Douglas, not that one, hang on, that's not it. Jeff Douglas sent out an email. Oh, that's not it either. Bing. There we go. Jeff Douglas sent out an email to everyone on, I think, the Mises Caucus mailing list in New Hampshire. So what happened is that on Wednesday evening, Jeff Douglas unilaterally purged every single person in New Hampshire from the Mises Caucus group. He then apparently thought better of it when he really pissed a lot of people off. And he sent out an email saying, no, I didn't really purge anyone and you're all invited back into the group. Except by this point, no one wants to rejoin the group because Jeff was such an asshole in how he handled all of this. No one wants to be associated with the Mises Caucus. So I'm not going to read this full article. This article basically, and I will pop it into the chat. This article basically debunks the letter that they sent out to every single Mises Caucus person on their list in New Hampshire. And it was just gaslighting and bullshit, okay? And it really showed that Jeff was not listening to anything that anyone told him in New Hampshire. But what I do want to read is this. Because last night at around 2 a.m., a little birdie sent me a letter that Sean Dempsey wrote to the Mises Caucus organizers. Now, Sean Dempsey is a very prominent libertarian in New Hampshire. Sean Dempsey has been on the executive committee for the LPNH. Sean Dempsey used to be on the communications committee for the LPNH. Sean Dempsey has been critical of the Twitter for the LPNH. It has caused him a lot of personal problems. Sean Dempsey was involved in the Mises Caucus. Sean Dempsey was a delegate in Reno. And Sean Dempsey is just all around a really great guy. Really nice guy, level-headed, so smart. Like, he is awesome. And Sean Dempsey is one of the people that Jeff Douglas tried to get to be a Mises Caucus organizer in New Hampshire in the last week. All right? And so when Jeff Douglas was talking to me and berating me and smearing me to my own mother, yes, that actually happened. Jeff Douglas emailed my mother. Never had such a thing happen to me before in my life. But as Jeff was admonishing everyone else and kicking everyone else out of the Mises Caucus, he had actually gotten Sean Dempsey to, I think, agree in theory to be the Mises Caucus organizer in New Hampshire to revitalize the Mises Caucus. Well, someone sent me the letter that Sean Dempsey sent to the Mises Caucus over the weekend, and I just want to read it. Because as of right now, some people might say, Carlin, you obviously have bad blood with the Mises Caucus, so you're just sharing all this stuff just because you have bad blood and it's all personal and me. Now, I would argue that I quite literally shared all the receipts, so you can go and judge for yourself what you think. I have receipts to back up everything. You can look at the actual primary source documents, but just in case anyone thinks that I'm the only one who's thinking this way, I would like to read you the letter that Sean sent to the Mises Caucus after they tried to get him to be the state organizer. He said, "Dear Michael and Jeff, Michael Heiss is the chair of the Mises Caucus. Jeff Douglas is the moron that purged every single person in the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire and insulted them and basically made it so no one actually wants to be involved in them anymore. Dear Michael and Jeff, I have great admiration and respect for everything the Mises Caucus has done for New Hampshire and for liberty all around the United States. The fact Michael Heiss's vision was executed so well and so seamlessly is truly inspiring. We accomplished so much and achieved what many thought wasn't possible, making the Libertarian Party libertarian again. Not just in New Hampshire and a few satellite areas, but the entire national party. Truly amazing, epic even. I continue to be awestruck by the vision, the strategic and tactical brilliance, the coordination, and the leadership of all involved. And I just want to echo Sean's sentiment here. One of the reasons I'm so disappointed in the events in New Hampshire in the last week is because I was in awe of what Michael Heiss did. That was why I always tried to help them in any way that I could, because I was legitimately in awe of what Michael Heiss did with the Mises Caucus and with the takeover. It was incredible. It was an impossible task. He de-wokeified the Libertarian Party. And now they're just acting woke again. They're becoming the monsters they're fighting. But prior to all of this, I had nothing but respect and admiration for every single thing that they had done. And that's part of what makes this so incredibly disappointing and how it's played out in New Hampshire. Sean continues. Thank you a million times over for everything the MC has done for New Hampshire and the entire movement. Jeff and Michael, sincerely, thank you. You do not get enough credit nor appreciation, especially recently as things have gone sour. You deserve to be praised for your contributions to helping us save New Hampshire from the prags and giving us some tools for saving the party and its brand image from banality and tepid messaging. In short, you lived up to your promise of restoring the Ron Paul revolution. That all said, it is with a heavy heart I must decline your request for me to be a Libertarian Party Mises Caucus ambassador/recruiter. My reasons for this are multiple, but I'll spare you the platitudes and be blunt and brief. 1. Any hope to restore the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus was destroyed when Jeff purged the Signal Group from all its members. Whatever the reason for doing so, I felt it was very poorly executed, lacked empathy, lacked strategy, lacked interpersonal skills, and took a shotgun out when a scalpel was needed. I don't blame anyone, but I feel the situation couldn't have been handled any poorer. In short, any hope of resuscitating the caucus backfired and died in that purge. And I'm going to say this. I have on my Red Pill Diaries Substack, hang on, I'll show you, this article right here about how the Mises Caucus contacted my mother to smear me. Yes, that really happened. And a full timeline of the New Hampshire Mises Caucus purge. If you go to this article on my Substack, I have in this article, and I'll pop the link in the chat, I have in this article every single screenshot that shows the entire Signal Group timeline from the moment that Jeff Douglas was added to the Signal chat until the moment that he purged everyone in the caucus. And I'll show you. There's a lot of them because this was a 4-hour conversation, all right? But I have every single thing, and here's the purge. You can see for yourself. After 4 hours of trying to negotiate with Jeff and play nice with Jeff, Jeff just purged every single person in the caucus. I have all of this because my husband was in the chat, and so it all existed on his phone. And you can see my husband got purged even though he wasn't even participating. So the reason I bring this up is because Sean Dempsey was in that chat. And Sean Dempsey, and I'm not going to tell you what he said, but Sean Dempsey was one of the people who was trying desperately to tell Jeff that his tactics were not working at all. And Sean Dempsey was on Jeff's side. This is what I really want people to understand. Sean Dempsey, at that point, when that chat took place, wanted to support the Mises Caucus. I think he had already talked to Jeff about being an organizer for the Mises Caucus. He wanted to revitalize the Mises Caucus. And then Jeff comes in like a bull in the china shop, pisses everyone off. Sean Dempsey was really trying to reason with him. Jeff, let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this other thing. This is not working, Jeff. This is ill-advised. You're burning bridges. He was one of the people saying that. There were other people saying that too. And Jeff just completely ignored him and did what he wanted to do. So Sean Dempsey went from being completely on team Mises Caucus to now flat out telling the Mises Caucus, this is not going to work. You guys done effed up badly. He continues in his letter. 2. I frankly don't see the need for the caucus anymore. We won. We took over the party from the milquetoast libertarian / Prague folks. What then is the further point of the caucus? I haven't seen Mises / take human action goals from the caucus that aren't emblematic of the larger holistic libertarian party. In other words, what's the point? The cons greatly outweigh the pros for an uphill battle with fellow New Hampshire libertarians, many of whom are interested in a real political party despite the allegations to the contrary. Every tie to the national LP can be maintained without maintaining a direct tie to the national MC. So one of the things that Jeff said when he was in his 4-hour tirade in the chat was, you guys don't want to be a serious political party. But he was saying that while he was shit-talking the people that helped get us ballot access last year. He shit-talked those people, called them haters and do-nothings, and then purged them from the entire party. How can you be a serious party when you are kicking out the people who are quite literally responsible for ballot access last year? 3, the caucus is now toxic. I called literally 19 different persons since last Thursday. Each are wonderful New Hampshire libertarians with varying degrees of involvement and knowledge of the current drama / situation. However, there was one thing in common for everyone. Each and every one had a very similar emotion. Feelings of abandonment, hurt, frustration, and resentment for what Jeff did by removing them from the caucus chat room and by the behavior exhibited in said room. Each and every one of them was angry, to be mild, that they gave up their time, efforts, and money, many of them having donated a lot of money, for a caucus that appeared ready to now turn its back on them. 1 or 2 persons is a fluke, but 19 persons saying pretty much the same thing is a pattern and a consensus. And that consensus painted a very clear picture. One that made it clear that the Mises Caucus would have no more future in New Hampshire after the way the recent situation was handled. I have been telling people that Jeff Douglas is lying when he says the Mises Caucus is still in New Hampshire and we're going to bring it back and we're revitalizing it and come join our chat and all these things. I've been trying to explain to people that are outside of New Hampshire that Jeff Douglas is full of shit. Because there is no one that I know of in New Hampshire that wants to be a part of the Mises Caucus after what Jeff Douglas did last week. Now, there may still be a Mises Caucus chat. What I have heard is that Jeff Douglas tried to add people back to the chat, and people were so pissed off they just left again. They don't want to be involved. And it was entirely an unforced error. Lastly, I will say this. I met with Benjamin Richards, who is also a former Mises Caucus recruiter, this afternoon for lunch. Ben Richards, by the way, also really, 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 really good guy. Stand-up guy. Universally respected. I trust Ben and his wisdom. He is probably one of the most well-respected, genuine, and all-around terrific persons and libertarians I know. I trust you would agree, having worked with him as well. I asked him bluntly if he felt I was missing any piece of the picture. Was there any way the caucus could survive the recent events and/or add value to New Hampshire? He and I came to the same sad conclusion. It couldn't. As such, I am very sorry to say I will not be pursuing the management/coordination for the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire. I hope the reasons stated above speak for themselves, and if it's any consolation, I will personally be advocating that all caucuses in New Hampshire be ignored or disbanded and effectively will be a waste of time and effort. I completely agree with Sean on that. I think that's a really fair point. And I think that I don't know of anyone who wants to go back to the old way of doing things in New Hampshire. I don't know of anyone who really wants to jump into a new caucus in New Hampshire. I think that we're actually in a pretty good place. Okay, there might be some bullshit infighting in the party about the Twitter account, but that's going to be handled internally. That the level of antagonism I feel towards the Twitter account is not close to what I feel the Mises Caucus has done. So that can be handled internally. But I think more or less we have beaten back Nick Sarwark and his crowd. Nick Sarwark has no relevance in the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire. There is zero chance that Nick Sarwark is going to be able to retake the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire as things stand right now. And that was really the biggest problem that we had to solve. Everything else can be solved internally. And so I completely agree with Sean there that I don't think that we need to bring caucuses into it, and I don't actually think it's a benefit. The business of running the LPNH party and affecting its political efforts can just as easily, and in fact more easily, be conducted without the veil of caucus affiliation. I believe it will only lead to additional infighting and squabbling at a time we desperately require cohesion and unity. With much respect, and all due appreciation for everything the Mises Caucus has done for me personally and the LPNH, yours sincerely in liberty, Sean Dempsey. And then he offers another article that he wrote that I actually thought was a really good article. If people want to read it, it is linked to the bottom of the article. But I just wanted to share Sean Dempsey's resignation letter with you guys so that people could see I'm not the only one saying that the Mises Caucus is dead in New Hampshire. And again, It really, really makes me sad. I'm not happy about this. I don't like talking about this. I don't like that this is the way that it's played out. There were any number of times that Michael Heiss could have stopped this entire train wreck, and he chose not to. I really have no other conclusion that I can draw other than Michael Heiss no longer wanted the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire. And people are running around saying, like, oh, all he did was remove people from a group. That's all that happened. He just removed people from a group. No one was kicked out of the party. No, 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 no. It wasn't just the removal from the group, which was really bad and really unnecessary. It was the overall disrespect and disregard that Jeff Douglas showed every single person that he interacted with as a part of this process, to include Sean Dempsey, to include me, to include every single person in that Signal group that spent 4 effing hours trying to reason with him that Jeff refused to listen to. Quite literally, all the Mises Caucus had to do in New Hampshire was nothing. That was it. We already had control of the party. There was nothing else for them to do here, but they kept trying to come in and take over the Twitter and control the Twitter and control the messaging and dictating who could be on the Twitter. And I say this as someone who is not even impressed with the current state of the Twitter. I don't think it's universally bad. I think most of the posts are just fine. I basically have issues with the Twitter management, though. I really do. I agree with them on a lot of their complaints. The difference between me and Michael Heiss and Jeff Douglas is that I live in New Hampshire. I am a dues-paying member of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. I am allowed to express my concerns about how the party is running the Twitter. And they don't listen to me either. To be quite frank, they don't listen to anyone that's not in their group. However, you know what I will not defend? 2 people from Pennsylvania, which is where Michael Heiss and Jeff Douglas are from, controlling the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Twitter, when forget being a part of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. Those 2 haven't even visited here, so far as I can tell, at least not recently. So in what right mind do they believe that 2 people in Pennsylvania, because they happen to be running the Mises Caucus, should have a say in the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Twitter? This is a control issue, plain and simple. They played the game. They lost. They didn't listen to anyone who tried to help them. They shit on everyone that's been supporting them for 2 years. Just such a train wreck. It really, really was. And I really hope that people learn from this. I really hope that there are other groups out there that take what happened and maybe even, God forbid, the Mises Caucus learns from it themselves and they don't do this in other states. Because there was no reason any of this needed to happen. Absolutely none. Completely unforced error on every single level. And now because of that, there will be no more Mises Caucus in New Hampshire. They can posture about rebuilding the caucus, starting from scratch, doing whatever they want. It is all a lie. It is all bullshit. They have no place here anymore. And it's really upsetting to me. And I'm really sorry it happened. But according to Jeff Douglas and Michael Heiss, I was never involved in the Mises Caucus for the last 2 years, so really, what do I know? Justin says, I was honestly going to try and wait till I knew how Heiss and company responded to Sean before publicizing his letter. I'll be really interested to see that, Justin. I'll be really interested to see what they do. Kevin from the internet says New Hampshire is a liberty machine that functions differently than literally anywhere else on earth. And this is what Jeff refused to understand. He wanted to try to force New Hampshire to run like every other state. New Hampshire is not every other state. He didn't listen. And here we are. Consequences, man. Fuck around and find out. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. I have 5 more minutes until my community Zoom. And as always, if you want to join us for community Zoom, what you need to do is either become a member of my locals or my Substack or my Patreon, and you can join us for community Zoom. And if you want to find the community Zoom links on Substack, just go right here to the main article on the main page, the Unwoke Roundup email that I sent out yesterday. And if you scroll down to the very bottom, if you are a paying supporter, you will be able to find the link to join us on the Zoom call. The link will also be posted out to my locals and my Patreon very soon, within the next couple minutes. We're going to jump on a private unrecorded Zoom call. We're going to have a great old time, and we will probably be going for a while. So if you want to join a little bit later, that's cool too, man. But that's all I've got for today, guys. Please mount that like button on your way out the door. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I will be back tomorrow. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.